I hope I actually keep up with this series this year, because last year I did like 4 videos from this series. Music just ended up getting really hectic. Like there was a point where there was so many albums every week, like 15 to 20 new albums. I was just like, there's no way I can keep up a decade later. But 2018 has begun, and hopefully I managed to keep it up. And I'm going to start with TV on the Radio. TV on the Radio is an indie art rock band from New York. They started very early in the 2000s, and they broke through with Return to Cookie Mountain in 2006, which is mostly considered their best work. Even though personally I prefer Dear Science, which is this album of course, in 2008. I don't know why I prefer it. I think it's just because it's slightly more accessible, even though one of their best songs they ever made was on Return to Cookie Mountain, Wolf I believe it was called. But this album I just feel like had more accessibility, and I could just listen to this at any point, and it's fairly catchy in its sound, so I just return to this one a lot more than I do with Cookie Mountain. But one thing that's strikingly clear about TV on the Radio is that they're very unique in their sound. I mean, indie rock was booming in the 2000s. Like, that is the genre that I think defined the 2000s. If we're going to look at the 2010s, it's probably going to end up being hip-hop. But 2000s I think was clearly indie rock. I mean, White Stripes, Arcade Fire, The Strokes, even Radiohead to an extent you could call them indie rock, with their like sort of sensibilities in their music, on Hail's the Thief and albums like that. You know, it's just a huge decade for indie rock. But TV on the Radio definitely took a very different approach to your Modest Mouses and all the other indie rock bands out there that were in the 2000s for sure. There's a bit more of like an urgency to their sound. I think like a lot of the tracks have like quite a pummeling like beat to them, and the vocalist Tunde, I believe his name is, can really like reach into his falsetto and also have quite like a deep voice as well. Like he's got a really good range, and I do love it when he's very like higher pitched, because like it makes some really catchy moments on the album, especially on a track like Golden Age. Golden Age! That obviously was an awful impression, but just in the vocals I feel like it's a very good mixture of like Block Party and Damon Albarn, you know, like but all of them have that same thing in common, where like there's just that range of vocals that's so unique in their way that they sing. But at the same time, even musically, they're quite Block Party as well. On like a track like Halfway Home, the opening track in the second half of the song, where you just get like this monstrous like beat pummeling right at the end of the song. It just like really wants you to like, you just want to jump up and down, you know, you want to rave like you're at a concert. It's so good. But there's also a very like soulful sound to TV on the Radio's music, especially on a track like Crying. Like, it makes me wonder, did Algiers take some kind of influence from TV on the Radio? Because I feel like Algiers have quite a lot of similarities to TV on the Radio. Now that I've gone back to this album, I'm kind of like thinking, yeah, you know what, in some of the vocal like sounds and the way like the songs are sort of mixed, there is that sort of soulful energy like Algiers have. Although Algiers like mix it up with so many other genres, they are a bit more like innovative in that sort of sense, but there's just a slight similarity. I do wonder if Algiers have taken an influence, I don't know. But then there are tracks like DLZ that completely switch things up and go into like a Nine Inch Nails route. Like honestly, you could easily hear this on some of like Nine Inch Nails albums with that instrumental, the electronically charged instrumental that just like throttles the whole way through. And I just like the casual singing over this instrumental too. It's a really good mix. I love the vocalist, how like he just switches things up slightly every now and then, and he's just so casual and cool, but then other times he's a bit more urgent. It's a really cool like mix of approaches that he takes to make this album have such a unique sound. This is beginning to feel like the dawn of the lust of forever. If that sounded appealing to you, then go listen to that song, because it is really good and really catchy, and has been used in quite a few TV shows as well, I've just found out when I was researching on the album. So you know, it's got its respect from the bigger people in the world, and yeah. But yeah, with that track and on this album, there is that electronic sound and that synth heavy influence on the album too, which again does give this album the slight edge over those indie rock like titans of the 2000s that typically played it quite normal, quite safe, didn't really, not always went in the most unique direction. It doesn't mean they made bad music, but I'm just saying that TV on the radio took it a step further and really just had a refined sound that not many other bands I think really ever were able to match or even did at the time actually. Which is why I think this album's so good and honestly deserves some more attention, so I do hope you go check this out after this review. Unless you already have, then do let me know what you think of this album and TV and the radio. And yeah, I'm going to say it's a B+. It's an easy B+ for me. It's a very, very good album. Probably would be like my top 10 of 2008. I don't know if I'm going to do a list, but it would be in the top 10 of 2008 for sure. Let me know what you think of this album if you've heard it. Let me know other albums I should review from 2008 and this Decade Latest series. Hopefully I'll get to them, keep up this series, because I do enjoy it. It's really fun going back to older albums. So like a throwback type thing, I guess. And yeah, let me know, and have a good day. Do have a good day.